Hello everybody, my name is Jay. I'm on a mission to help people become smarter creators. As Joe said, my business is called Creator Science. I try to take a very analytical, data-driven, rigorous approach to helping people find success as a creator because, to be honest, I've never thought of myself as all that talented. And to get where I am, it's been a lot of trial and error in a very rigorous way. And I think that's actually the more achievable, relatable, teachable process to help other creators do the same. So I have a newsletter that goes out every week called Creator Science that packs this into about 10 minutes per week. I have a podcast on YouTube and in audio. I've interviewed people like Anne. It's been fantastic. And I have a membership community called The Lab. There's like 20 to 25 folks from The Lab here at CEX this week. It's amazing. Woo! Love the claps. Before this, I was leading community for Pat Flynn at SPI. I am not that tall, as you can see here. And if you know my work, what you might know is that I really value depth and nuance and getting into the nooks and crannies of what I believe to be true and how things work. But I have 15 minutes, so you guys are getting hot takes and tactics. I've had a good couple of years as a creator. I shared this recently. I keep a really good track of my data so I can look back historically and see, okay, I started the content business in 2017. I was much slower than most of the creators we had in the study that Joe shared earlier. It took me several years to get to a point where I was making meaningful revenue, but the last couple of years have been really great, and this year's on pace for over 600,000 gross, which is really exciting. Breaks down, okay, thank you. It breaks down to be about $40,000 to $50,000 per month, but again, I started really slow. If you look at the first 3 years here, I actually went backwards in 2019. You know, like not exactly the trajectory that you want. But through the podcast, Creator Science, I've interviewed over 100 creators now, and I've learned a lot. And by talking to creators who are doing this professionally, full-time, I've been able to learn and adapt and bring things into my business that have helped me a lot. So for the next 15 minutes, I want to share with you, if I had to start over today in 2023, this is what I would do. I would start a weekly newsletter. A lot of writers in the room, I believe. I think Anne would probably agree with me on this. A weekly newsletter is a great creative practice to help you find your voice, find your perspective. And if you're sitting here saying, I would love to do that, but I don't actually know what to write about, I think there are two approaches I would recommend you considering. The first would be build on the unique experiences that you already have. You've probably worked really hard in some area, industry, and build up a lot of expertise, what I would call earned insight in that space. And that's a great place to start from because you have a head start there. You have a lot of insight, a lot of unique stories and experiences. But a lot of people come to me and say, I actually hate what I've been doing for a long time. I want to get out of it. I don't want to write about that anymore. And that's totally fine too. In which case, I would say follow some new obsession. An example I like to give on this is a creator named Dan Runcie. Dan has a blog called Trapital. It's writing about the intersection of business and hip hop. And before Dan was writing about that, he was a management consultant. He wasn't in music. He wasn't in hip hop. He just loved hip hop. He was a fan. And by saying, this is what I want to do, I want to follow this obsession, Dan quickly became one of the most respected, looked up to, knowledgeable people in this space that he created. So if you go the approach of building on your unique experiences, that helps you very quickly demonstrate authority, which is good in this space. I think we know that. But if you start from a place of obsession, I would recommend positioning yourself and embracing the role of curious beginner. The value you're bringing is you are voraciously learning and contextualizing and, taking all of the time and research you're putting into this and simplifying it for other people to follow just behind you with much less work. So those are the two approaches I would take to a newsletter. At that point, next step is study. I think if you want to be successful on any platform, you really need to be a student of that platform. That's why it's so hard to do so many platforms at once. Because if you were in school and you wanted to be a straight A student, Would that be easier to do if you were taking 5 classes at a time or 1 class? You know, and each of these platforms, there's a game within the game of these platforms, and to really learn and succeed on any given platform, you have to be a student of that. It's not impossible to be a straight A student on 5 platforms, but it's a heck of a lot harder than 1 or 2. So really become a student of that area of study that you're interested in, with the goal of becoming one of the most knowledgeable people in the world on that topic, which sounds super daunting. But to be honest, most people aren't putting 20, 40, 60 hours a week into studying one specific thing. If you do that consistently, week over week, month over month for a couple of years, you're going to be up there really, really quickly. So be aspirational if you want to. If you want to learn something new and be known as someone in some other space, you can do that in a couple of years. More knowledge means more unique insight, which creates more compelling work. All right, step 3. I would go hard on Twitter. Now, I know I probably just lost a lot of you. You're probably like, no, hold on, Twitter dying, Twitter bad, check marks, what's going on? I get it. I still think there's a lot of opportunity here, and if it's not Twitter, it might be Blue Sky, something else will take its place. But the format of Twitter, short form writing, is an incredible way for you to flex your idea muscle and validate ideas really quickly that you can then blow up into larger pieces. You can repurpose from Twitter really nicely, which I'll talk about here in a second. But if you're just getting started, you've probably experienced radical indifference to the stuff that you put out on Twitter. You say, no one's listening, no one's engaging with my stuff, it's depressing. So if you're in that space, I would say find other large accounts talking about similar things, because the people that you want to reach are probably already gathered behind someone else who's talking about something similar. And all you have to do is get in their line of sight and basically audition your thoughts and beliefs in front of them. What I do, I stalk people. I go to their profile, I click this little bell, and this does a couple of things. One, the people that I'm trying to learn from, if I click this little bell and I'm willing to get the push notifications, you can learn really, really quickly how people are using the tool and what is finding success for them. You know, I just inject straight into my veins some creators who are really good on Twitter and say, like, how often do they tweet? What are they tweeting about? How are they engaging with their followers? But if you do that with the point of growing your own following, find someone in your space, turn on notifications, you can be one of the first people to add a value add reply. That's really important. You don't jump in and say, great post. Not helpful, not interesting, not something other people are going to want to follow. No one wants to follow the reply guy. But if you are thoughtful and discerning and pick your spots of where you think you can really add value, you can get a lot of visibility. So, you know, this is an example of that in action. I responded to a tweet from James Clear. That response got nearly 20,000 views. And if you are somebody with a few hundred followers on Twitter, if that, you're not getting 20,000 views of your tweets. You will get much more awareness and exposure by being value add in conversations that are already happening than your own tweets. It's a good place to start. Then I would still recommend you actually do the output of tweeting 1 to 2 times per day. I honestly think that 1 time per day is enough. And if you have something that's going well, just let it go. Don't step on the toes of something that's still performing, still getting engagement. Aim for 1 to 2 tweets per day and 1 to 2 threads per week. Super tactical, I know. And that may change. You know, this is still, though, what I'm seeing being pretty successful on Twitter for growing, if that's your goal. If you do that well, you'll see some of these things do okay. And you'll think, okay, I tweeted 7 times this week. These 3 were clearly the top performers. You can take those and repurpose it for other platforms. You can blow it up into a newsletter if it didn't come from a newsletter. You know, you can use that as the crux for some longer form writing in your newsletter. You can repurpose them to other platforms like LinkedIn. There's still attention arbitrage, is what I would call it, on LinkedIn right now. You can take your best performing tweets, you can turn them into what people call a carousel, but is actually a document upload on LinkedIn. Multi-slide, you know, that people just scroll through it, read it, and it keeps people on the platform. It keeps a lot of attention on your post, which sends good signals to the algorithm. You get good engagement from it. If it's short enough, if you have less than 10 slides in that carousel, you could also upload it to Instagram. So this is why I like Twitter as a top of funnel. It's a good idea validator, but it also can become content on other platforms. If you're wondering how to do this document upload style thing, I use a tool called TweetPic. It's wildly frustrating most of the time, but it gets the job done and it's better than the alternatives. So you'll figure it out. It takes a little bit of doing, but I use that for those carousels. If you want to go the extra mile and you're good at Canva, making your own designed template on Canva, much better. Much better, much harder. Does it even have the same results? I don't have enough data to say. Kind of not sure it does, but I think if you do it well and you do it over time, I think it's better. Whatever traffic you're getting on social media, then you direct that to the newsletter I was talking about. It's pretty easy to do. If you have a tweet that's performing well or a thread that's performing well, you can add another tweet to it on the thread to say, if you like this, you might like this, my newsletter over here. You probably see a lot of people on Twitter doing this. You might roll your eyes. I feel the same way about this as I feel about exit intent pop-ups. Wish that it didn't work. Undeniably does. So consider it. Another great way to do this is before and after you put out a newsletter. This is Chanel. Chanel's here. I don't know if she's here because she was telling me, yes, Chanel's here. Chanel and I have a podcast episode that went out this morning, actually. But she's gotten really good at, hey, this week I spent this many hours researching this creator, and if you want that, sign up for my newsletter. Really compelling pitch. And then afterwards, she'll share again, like, hey, yesterday I shared this part in my newsletter, this creator, and how they broke 50,000 subscribers. So it's really easy to do in this way. You can do it on LinkedIn as well. You have the newsletter now, you're on Twitter, you're making content. I recommend offering one-on-one consulting. If you want to, if you're trying to turn revenue quickly, if you're trying to make this financially viable quickly, services are going to be your shortest path to get there. And any readers on your newsletter are looking up to you to some degree, so it's a great opportunity to offer some one-on-one consulting. Whether you do that on an hourly basis, whether you want to do implementation, whether you want to do a curriculum-led program, totally up to you. But you will have this opportunity because your readers look up to you, and you can offer them some one-on-one time in whatever sense makes sense for you. I would cross-promote with other newsletters. This is a great way to grow. You can do it in a very hand-to-hand combat manual style way. I recently did a cross-promotion with Ed from Film Booth. Gave him a section in the newsletter. He did the same for me. I genuinely like his newsletter. I genuinely recommend it. He does the same. So, this resulted in several hundred email subscribers being passed between the two of us at no cost. I also use a tool right now called Upscribe by SparkLoop to have automated recommendations. There are several tools to do this. ConvertKit just launched their creator network, and I have FOMO, not being a part of it. Maybe you do as well. Definitely get on the waiting list. Beehive, Substack, all these tools now have this recommendation engine, which is a wonderful time in history because previous to this, there was just no real organic discoverability in newsletters. It's a wonderful opportunity right now. Then I would roll out newsletter sponsorship. You're bringing people in, they're reading the newsletter. It's not uncommon to get $30 to $50 CPMs. I won't do the math because public math is not my forte. But that breaks down to, if you have 10,000 subscribers, it's about $300 per ad if you're getting a $30 CPM. So if you're running 4 newsletters a month, that's $1,200 a month from sponsorship alone. Not bad, not bad. Then I would create a digital product because these are the most scalable ways for you to generate revenue as a creator. All you got to do is listen to your subscribers. They're going to reply to your newsletter. They're going to have thoughts. They're going to have questions. Listen to that, absorb it. Identify patterns and trends in the problems that you're hearing, make a solution. Sounds simple? It is simple. A lot of times we complicate things and get in our own way, but it's actually pretty simple. Then, if you want, you can increase ad inventory. If you're selling through your newsletter ads, a great way to increase your revenue is either to increase the price or increase the inventory. And I think increasing the inventory is where I would start if you have the capacity to create more. The options there would be to increase the number of ads per newsletter. You could have 2 spots instead of 1. Or increase the number of newsletters you're sending per month. Maybe instead of 1 per week, you're sending 2 per week. And you can see how this starts to add up pretty quickly. Finally, if you're doing all this, just stay the course. You're going to have all of this temptation to jump to other platforms, start on TikTok, get on Blue Sky. Everything feels like an opportunity because growth in my newsletter and Twitter is hard, so let me start from zero somewhere else. Not really a great idea. Going to spread you thin. Maintain your publishing schedule on the newsletter, on whatever social platform you've chosen. Keep your content quality high. ignore distractions, and you're gonna be in a good place. Because if you follow this pathway, you actually have 3 sources of revenue already. You have ad inventory, you have one-on-one consulting, you have digital products. That's pretty quick. It's very doable. You know, if you follow this time next year, you might be here on the stage at CEX talking about how you did all this in just 1 year. It can really be that quickly. So to recap, newsletter, study, hard on Twitter. I'm sorry for the people who don't like that. Repurpose the best stuff that you're finding on social, direct that traffic to your newsletter, one-on-one consulting, cross-promote, roll out sponsorship, make a digital product, increase your ad inventory, and stay the course.